Rome wasn't built in a day, nor did it begin as an empire. Imagine a harsh, unforgiving landscape in central Italy, around the 8th century BCE. A small, struggling village, perched on a handful of hills overlooking the Tiber River. This wasn't a place destined for greatness, not yet. Its inhabitants were shepherds and farmers, constantly battling rival tribes for survival. The story of Rome is often told through myth: two orphan brothers, Romulus and Remus, raised by a she-wolf, choosing a site for their new city. This humble origin, steeped in legend, belies the colossal power it would one day wield. It was a beginning forged in necessity, not destiny. The myth might capture the spirit, but geography laid the practical foundation. The Latins, ancestors of the Romans, found themselves in a strategically enviable position. The 7 hills provided natural defenses, making it difficult for attackers to breach. The Tiber River offered a crucial trade route to the sea, connecting them to burgeoning Mediterranean networks, while also providing freshwater and fertile plains for agriculture. Furthermore, the Italian peninsula itself acted as a bridge between the east and west, allowing for relatively easy expansion in all directions. This unique blend of defensibility and connectivity would prove vital for future growth. By 509 BCE, Rome had cast off its Etruscan kings, establishing a republic, a residential publica, meaning public affair. This was a revolutionary shift. Power was no longer concentrated in one monarch, but distributed among elected officials and assemblies. The bedrock of this new society was a set of core Roman values: virtus, manly courage and excellence; pietas, duty to gods, family, and state; and gravitas, dignity and seriousness. These weren't mere abstract concepts, they were lived principles that forged a disciplined, resilient citizenry and a military machine driven by honor and civic duty. This moral compass guided early Roman expansion. The burgeoning republic wasn't content with just defending its homeland. Driven by the need for security, resources, and influence, Rome began a relentless expansion across the Italian peninsula. Through a combination of shrewd diplomacy, strategic alliances, and brutal military force, they slowly brought neighboring tribes and city-states under their sway. This wasn't always outright conquest. Often, Rome offered citizenship or allied status, integrating defeated peoples into their system. This pragmatic approach allowed them to draw on a larger pool of manpower and resources, solidifying their control over Italy by the 3rd century BCE and creating a unified, powerful base. With Italy unified, Rome's ambitions soon clashed with another formidable power, Carthage. Located on the coast of modern-day Tunisia, Carthage was a wealthy maritime empire, controlling vast trade networks across the Mediterranean. Their naval dominance was unparalleled, and their influence stretched from North Africa to Spain. The two emerging superpowers found their spheres of influence colliding over Sicily, a strategically vital island that controlled key sea lanes. The stage was set for a series of devastating conflicts that would define the future of the Mediterranean world: the Punic Wars, a true test of Rome's rising might. The Second Punic War, beginning in 218 BCE, brought Rome to the brink. Hannibal Barca, Carthage's brilliant general, achieved what many thought impossible. He marched an army, complete with war elephants, over the Alps, descending into Italy to wreak havoc. For over a decade, Hannibal traversed the peninsula, inflicting crushing defeats on Roman armies at Trebia, Lake Trasimene, and most famously, Cannae. At Cannae, 60,000 Roman soldiers perished in a single day, one of history's deadliest battles. Rome's survival hung by a thread, its resolve tested to its absolute limit against this audacious invader. Hannibal challenged the very heart of Rome. Yet, Rome refused to yield. Despite the devastation, they consistently raised new armies, leveraging their superior manpower and the loyalty of their Italian allies. A new Roman general, Scipio Africanus, emerged, realizing that the best way to defeat Hannibal was to attack Carthage itself. In 204 BCE, Scipio landed in North Africa, forcing Hannibal to return and defend his homeland. The decisive Battle of Zama in 202 BCE saw Scipio triumph, securing Rome's victory. Carthage was stripped of its empire, becoming a client state. Rome was now the undisputed master of the Western Mediterranean, its resilience proven. Victory came at a cost. The vast expansion brought immense wealth, but it also widened the gap between rich and poor. Small farmers, away fighting Rome's wars, lost their land to large aristocratic estates worked by slaves acquired through conquest. This led to a dispossessed urban poor, swelling the ranks of Rome's legions, but also fueling unrest. Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus, two tribune brothers, attempted land reforms in the late 2nd century BCE to address this inequality, only to be brutally murdered by conservative senators. Their deaths signaled a dangerous new era of political violence and civil discord within the Republic. The military, once the guardian of the Republic, now became a tool for ambitious generals. Gaius Marius revolutionized the army by recruiting landless citizens, promising them land and spoils upon retirement. Their loyalty shifted from the state to their commander. Later, Lucius Cornelius Sulla marched his army on Rome itself in 88 BCE, seizing power and initiating proscriptions, lists of political enemies to be executed. These acts shattered the republican ideal, demonstrating that military power, not senatorial decree, was the new currency of control. The stage was set for charismatic leaders to challenge the old order and dismantle its institutions. Among these ambitious men, one would rise above all: Gaius Julius Caesar. A brilliant general, orator, and politician, Caesar conquered Gaul, securing vast territories and building a formidable, loyal army. His immense popularity with the common people and his military successes made him a threat to the established order in Rome. When the Senate, led by his rival Pompey, demanded he disband his army, Caesar made his fateful decision in 49 BCE. He crossed the Rubicon River, uttering the immortal words, "Alia I acta est," the die is cast. This act initiated a civil war that would irrevocably end the Republic. Caesar's victory in the civil war led to his dictatorship, but his ambition was cut short by assassination in 44 BCE. This plunged Rome into another brutal power struggle. Out of the chaos emerged his adopted heir, Octavian. Through cunning political maneuvering and further civil wars, Octavian systematically eliminated his rivals, including Mark Antony and Cleopatra. By 27 BCE, he had consolidated absolute power, cleverly presenting himself as the restorer of the Republic, while in reality, laying the foundations for the Roman Empire. He took the title of Augustus, meaning the revered one, signaling a new imperial era. Augustus ushered in an unprecedented era known as the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. For over 2 centuries, from 27 BCE to 180 CE, the empire experienced relative stability and prosperity. Roman legions secured vast borders, trade flourished, and infrastructure projects, roads, aqueducts, bridges, connected the sprawling domains. This stability allowed for immense cultural and technological advancements, from Roman law to monumental architecture. The population of the empire swelled, and Roman citizenship became a coveted status, extending across 3 continents, cementing Roman dominance and influence throughout the known world. It was a golden age. At its greatest extent, under Emperor Trajan in the early 2nd century CE, the Roman Empire spanned over 5 million square kilometers, encompassing much of Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. It governed an estimated 50 to 90 million people, representing nearly 20% of the world's population at the time. This colossal domain was unified by a common legal system, administration, and a powerful army. Cities across the empire mirrored Rome itself, with forums, baths, and amphitheaters, showcasing the reach and influence of Roman culture. It was an unparalleled achievement in human history, a testament to Roman organization and ambition. Yet, even at its peak, the seeds of decline were being sown. The Pax Romana eventually gave way to the crisis of the 3rd century, a period of relentless political instability. Emperors rose and fell with dizzying speed, often at the hands of their own legions. In just 50 years, from 235 to 284 CE, there were over 20 legitimate emperors, most dying violent deaths. This constant upheaval eroded central authority, diverted resources from productive uses to civil wars, and made effective governance impossible. The loyalty of the legions, once Rome's strength, became its greatest weakness, a critical pivot point towards decline. Hand in hand with political chaos came severe economic decline. Constant warfare, both internal and external, drained the imperial treasury. Emperors resorted to debasing the currency, reducing the silver content of coins, to pay for their armies and expenses. This led to rampant inflation, making goods prohibitively expensive and commerce difficult. Trade routes became less secure, further disrupting the economy. The empire, once a hub of wealth, found itself struggling to maintain its basic functions, with resources increasingly diverted from innovation in public works to mere survival, weakening its core stability. While internal struggles weakened Rome, external pressures intensified. Along its vast borders, Germanic tribes, Goths, Vandals, Franks, and other groups like the Huns were migrating, often pushed by internal pressures of their own. The empire's overextension meant its legions were thinly spread, constantly fighting on multiple fronts. Maintaining these vast borders became an unsustainable burden. Rome could no longer project the same power it once did, and increasingly, resorted to appeasement or paying tribute, signaling a profound shift in its standing and a critical vulnerability. The once unconquerable empire now looked fragile. Recognizing the impossibility of governing such a vast, troubled empire from a single capital, Emperor Diocletian divided it into eastern and western halves in 285 CE. Later, Constantine established a new capital, Constantinople, in the east. This division, intended to improve administration and defense, ultimately accentuated the growing divergence between the two halves. The east, wealthier and more urbanized, with its capital far from the troubled western frontiers, was better positioned to survive. The west, facing constant barbarian incursions and economic decay, continued its downward spiral, illustrating a critical strategic miscalculation. The symbolic heart of the Western Empire suffered a devastating blow in 410 CE. The Visigoths, led by Alaric, sacked the city of Rome. For 3 days, the Eternal City, which had not been breached by an enemy for 8 centuries, was plundered. While not a fatal military blow to the empire's overall structure, the psychological impact was immense. It shattered the myth of Roman invincibility and sent shockwaves across the known world. The city that had birthed an empire was now a shadow, vulnerable and exposed, a stark sign of the times and a turning point in perception. Its invulnerability was truly broken. The Western Roman Empire continued its slow, agonizing decline. Its central authority fractured, its territories parceled out to various barbarian kingdoms. The final, formal end came in 476 CE when the Germanic chieftain Odoacer deposed the last Western Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus. Odoacer sent the imperial regalia back to Constantinople, effectively dissolving the Western Empire and proclaiming himself King of Italy. It wasn't a sudden cataclysm, but the culmination of centuries of internal decay and external pressure. A new map of Europe was being drawn, fragmented and volatile, marking the definitive end of an era and the dawn of the Dark Ages. Rome fell, but its legacy endured. The Eastern Roman Empire, or Byzantine Empire, continued for another 1,000 years, preserving Roman law and culture. Even in the West, Roman influences permeated the new barbarian kingdoms. Roman law forms the basis of many modern legal systems. Latin remains foundational to Romance languages and scientific terminology, and Roman architecture and engineering continue to inspire. The very concept of a republic, of a vast, organized state, and the ambition for universal governance all carry the indelible mark of Rome. It taught us how to build an empire, and how easily even the greatest can fall.